So if you are not a member of our SES Math Learning Central site, join that. That's where we share all of our information. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. Kira, you can go ahead and get started.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. As I often tell all of you guys, it's important for you guys to have some self-care. So I am actually in Florida, decided to take a last-minute girls trip with my stepmom and my sisters-in-law. So I am actually in the car on the way to the airport. But I am so thankful for Joy and Tama for being here and helping us understand the how to write IEP goals for math. This is such a valuable thing. Thank you so much, Joy and Tama. And I'm just going to let you guys go ahead and talk. Thanks.
Okay. So thank you, Kira, for putting this together. We have a few other CTs on here, so I'm going to let them go ahead and just say hello really quickly. Courtney Tucker's here.
Good morning, everyone.
And we have Kim LaFave on the road. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you to my Eastern region for showing up. Yay.
And Marcia.
Good morning. I hope everyone is having a marvelous Monday.
All right. And then I hope I didn't miss any of the other CTs. Tama Johnson is on here. She is the Senior Administrator for Special Ed Math.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for coming. I know it's bright and early, but we're excited to share with you.
Yeah. And I am Joy Southwell. I am the coordinating teacher for Special Education Math, and Tama and I make up the math team. I know I've been to some of your schools this year or last year, or Tama's been, and we've shared a lot of information. This is going to be, I'm going to stop at 9:00, but if you'd like more information, please send us an email. Our emails are shared in this presentation. Tama's been dropping in the chat, the presentation, and the bit.ly. So feel free to, if there's anything you're unclear about, email us and let us know. We'll be happy to help you. So you are going to need to refer the presentation for a quick quiz during this session today. So today we're going to focus on some Wake County resources that are already available to you to help you write IEP goals. It's here to make your life a lot easier and not more complicated, because STAR Math is the one we're going to focus on today. STAR Math is already completed in the 3rd through 5th grade general ed classrooms. So you don't have to do it unless you just want to, and we'll talk a little bit more about those options later. I believe the window has opened for some schools. So some schools have already started administering their tests. I believe for traditional, it opens around October 10th. It's very similar to your NKT and your AMC windows. So we're going to look at those resources and talk about writing good IEP present levels and goals. And we're going to refer to some of that material you saw in the corrective action that was shared. So we do have a very information-packed hour. So I'm going to kick it off with just this statement from the latest corrective action videos that we had to watch by September 20th. That pretty much says, without a well-written present level and goals aligned to North Carolina standards, providing that specially designed instruction to close the gaps can be challenging. How many of you, you can hit your hand raise button or give me a thumbs up with your camera on, have ever received a present level and some IEP goals from a stranger, someone you didn't know, and you were like, what in the world can this kid can and cannot do? And what is his goal? And how in the world am I going to progress monitor that goal? Yeah, I think we've all had that situation. And I think I'm probably guilty of writing a few of those. So I'm really glad that somebody clarified for me how to write IEP goals. So we're not here today to point the finger or anything like that. We're here today to give you the knowledge that you need so that when we know better, we do better. Okay, so this is the NCDPI Data-Driven Individualization Trajectory for Success. So if we write a really, really good present level and goals, then we know exactly what specially designed instruction we need to implement there. We know exactly what to do. So we're going to focus today on these data-rich present levels and goals, writing good goals that are easy to progress monitor. One good math goal is all you need. And then we're going to talk a little bit about progress monitoring, and I can give you some information on that if you'd like, and a little bit about specially designed instruction. Okay, so let's kick it off. So this student is a 4th grade student with an IEP goal about memorizing her multiplication facts. Considering this limited amount of data that you know here about Sally, do you think this IEP goal is appropriate? And if not, what are some of the red flags? And just drop it in the chat. What are some of the red flags that come up to you that say, this IEP goal may not be appropriate for this student? Give you a few minutes to drop that in the chat. Or just unmute and chime in. Whatever you are more comfortable with. Yeah, if we can't add, multiplication is certainly repeated addition. Thank you, Amy, for sharing that. Yeah, if we're struggling with adding, we're not ready for multiplication. How do you measure, memorize? Oh, wonderful. Yeah, it's kind of hard to progress monitor memory, and we want in our good, in our good goals, we want to be able to have a goal we can easily progress monitor. I mean, we got to do that thing 7 to 12 times a quarter, right? So yeah, we want a good IEP goal that we can progress monitor pretty easily and pretty quickly. And one that measures progress monitors pretty accurately. It's pretty hard to accurately measure somebody's memory. We could certainly have, we certainly want to teach multiplication. The student's in 4th grade. She's ready for multiplication. However, she's not ready for, her grade level is ready for multiplication, but she's not. So we want to be sure that we have a goal that matches what the student's needs are. And we'll look at matching a good present level to a goal. And one of the things that, the reason we're watching corrective action, if you've been here a few years, I do like that, Gina. Thank you. I'll share that too. One of the reasons that we're present levels aren't matching what our goals aren't matching present levels. So we may have goals that state weaknesses around addition and subtraction, but then we have a goal about multiplication or word problems. And it's just too vague. It's something that we can't really progress monitor, or it makes it very difficult for us to progress monitor. And also, thank you, Gina, for sharing that. Memorizing facts is too much of a goal in 1 year. We want goals that can be attainable within 1 year. And that's certainly something that we're going to address today as well. So I'm going to give it a minute. If any of the CTs or Tama, you want to chime in and add anything to this, and then we'll move on looking at some data and writing good IEP goals. And if any of you are, anyone else wants to chime in and add anything, I know sometimes I can't cover it all, so just feel free to jump right in. So this is a snapshot of some of Sally's instructional planning report data from the STAR report. The instructional planning student report is the one that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck when you are pulling that data to get ready for your IEPs and instruction. We'll talk about that too. Does everyone understand how to, and I don't mind, I can quickly kind of go through, I have STARS pulled up here. I can kind of walk through looking for an instructional planning report. Would anyone like me to do that? Just raise your hand. I can take a minute and do that as well. Yes. Okay. I certainly will. So if you notice in this particular snapshot of the instructional planning report, yeah, Dina, I'll cover all that. Thanks. If you look at this snapshot of instructional planning report, it says right here, there's going to be focus skills, and I'll tell you what those are, identified by domain. So there's the number and operations, algebraic thinking, measurement data, and geometry. We spend a lot of our time in that calculation domain. So we spend a lot of time in that numbers and operations and the algebraic thinking. That's where you're going to be looking for your skills because those are calculation things. You are going to want to look at the math it takes to get to the math. So we're looking at the calculation and algebra so that you can teach the math that it takes to get to finding area and finding perimeter and those kinds of things. So yes, if you're over, IF has given you access and overnight rollover access disappears. That is a help desk thing to send in, and make sure that your principal or an AP is giving you access through Oasis. Elementary principals are pretty familiar with how to do that. If you need more specific directions, I can send you that in an email, Amy. So for here, my screen is going to look a little bit different from yours. But if you are here in Renaissance, or the way you get to this, first of all, is this R. I know the assessment we give is called the STAR assessment. However, we administer it through the company called Renaissance. So you're going to want to look for that R, Renaissance Learning. When you go there, my screen is going to look a little bit different from yours, but you're going to see something like this. It's going to say Star Math Spanish. That's what we offer. And then over here, it will have reports for you. So you're going to click on reports and you want to click on STAR assessment. Now remember, instructional planning student report is the one that's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. Now, what I have done, I've made mine come up. If you're looking at yours at the same time, I have made mine pop up to the top by hitting the pin. So there's a little pin here that I've hit. And anytime you hit one of these pins, you can put a report up at the top of your dashboard. So I put some of the most commonly used STAR reports there. I'm going to talk about instructional planning today, but we have a great video about key STAR math reports in our SES Math YouTube channel, which is on our SES Math Learning Central page. So I'm going to click on instructional planning report, student report. Now, when it comes up at the top for you, it's going to default to reading. But once you change it to math and STAR Math Enterprise, it'll stay there for you. Okay. So if you have access, you will see you won't see the word school here. You will see just classes, groups, and students. The really cool feature about this that I like is you can just type in a student name. So if, let's see, Benjamin's a pretty common name. You can just type in first three letters of the name and you can choose it. So I'm going to go ahead and go with this student that I chose the other day. Please remember, this is, I'll take this out of my video, but this is confidential data. So I'm just going to show it to you for just a few minutes because it is an actual live report. So right here, I can toggle whether or not I want to show only the focus skills or not. And I'll show you what both reports look like. Just going to touch back on this for a moment. The focus skills are going to have the lightning bolts. And they are the big rocks of the curriculum. They're the things that kids must master in order to do the other math. There are some STAR trainings that are offered, and there's some information about focus skills. I'll drop a website in the from Renaissance in their chat in just a moment. But they showed us in a training I went to on Thursday. If you'd like to attend some of these, I can share the dates with you too. They showed us a web of like, if the student can't do this particular focus skill, then it branched out to like 4 or 5 different skills that the kids can't do, would struggle to do. So it's really, really important that, we hone in on these focus skills for our IEP goals so that we're closing those gaps. Okay. While I go back to this, any questions that you might have right now? I know I've talked for about 14 minutes or so.
Yes. I have a question.
Sure.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out the STAR math. I know I'm probably taking it backwards, but when I go under Renaissance, which I was trying to follow you as you were doing it, it has me on like the reading part.
Yes. So at the top, you'll need to toggle this to, there's a pull down menu, and you'll just need to toggle this to math.
Okay.
They do offer a reading assessment that that Wake County doesn't have. So when I went to that, I hit instructional planning and student report.
Okay.
And then at the top, it'll set you to make sure you toggle it to math or you won't see anything there.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. All right. And just, hey, if you're still having trouble at the end of the session, I'll stick around. I'll be around for questions at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and turn on the focus skills for the student because I want to see the big skills that he needs to learn. And if you don't have access, I believe Tama just dropped the directions for your APs or principal in the chat as well. So I'm going to hit update report. And when I scroll down, I'm going to see this fella. He took the test on Friday, okay, at this school. These numbers, this is a STAR math skills score. So it's not really norm referenced or, it's not very parent friendly if we put it in our present level. This is a good thing to put in your assessment summary because it shows progress throughout the years as the student's taking the assessment, but we don't want to put it in our present levels. Also, the quantile scores are now popping up, which is great. If you want information about that, you can go to Quantiles, I believe, search it, and there's a great website that kind of explains what that means. Percentile rank is just where it ranks him among all the students nationally who took the STAR assessment. So it's not like one of those percentiles things that you see when a school psychologist assesses the test. It's more like just ranked against how other students do nationally on the STAR assessment. So as I continue to scroll down, I'm going to see those suggested skills. And these skills, they say right here, these are the words for your present level, and I'll show you this in a minute. Suggest he is ready for instruction and practice with the following skills. There you go. Now, I'm going to put it out to you in the chat. Okay, I'll show you the whole report. Then I'm going to put out to you in the chat of what you think is most foundational and where you would center your instruction and your IEP goal around. So we're looking at numbers operations base 10 here. Then when we go down here to algebraic thinking, let's see if I make this a little bit smaller for you. Okay, I'm not trying to hurt your eyes. Okay, and I'm going to go down here to algebra, and it just gave me focus skills in those two areas, which is great because those are the areas that we focus on for most. Drop in the chat what you think is most foundational and where you would center your instruction and your IEP goals.
Joy, can you scroll up just a smidge?
Yeah.
So there we go.
Yep. I know if you have old eyes like I do, that's hard to see. So I'm trying not to blind anybody there. So where would you center your IEP goal in your instruction? Okay. Certainly we want to address number sense. Thanks, Jessica. Okay. Place value strategies. Two-digit numbers. Okay, yeah. So considering this guy's a fourth grader, we want to look at what might give him the biggest bang for his buck. Okay. So I see, a lot of you are putting in there those foundational skills. That's excellent. Of course, we want to address all of those things, but we want to probably most likely hone in on what's going to give this kid the biggest bang for his buck. No, a calculator was not used on this assessment. Likely, no. Calculators only pop up when kids need it on the screen when they're taking the assessment. So we want to focus on that calculation. That's, really going to help the kids. I know there was a situation where, a kid had used a calculator all through elementary school. I observed him in 9th grade, and he was struggling with some 9th grade math 1 skills because he needed some quick calculation skills and some fluency in order to do the math he was doing. So considering this guy's 4th grader, in a couple years, he's going to middle school. We want to focus on that addition and subtraction skill. And the skills that you all listed for instruction are things we are going to teach while we're teaching addition and subtraction. If I were to come into your classroom and say, let's say, I want to see a kid here working on his IEP goal. And his IEP goal may be adding and subtracting within 100, right? So if I want to see that, but I saw you that day pulling out some place value box and teaching place value, we would know, anyone from the math team or your CTs would know why you're teaching place value, because those are underlying skills that help students with addition and subtraction. Now, depending on the student and also depending on if my progress monitoring matches what's within STAR. Okay, that's very important. Just remember, STAR is not really a goal progress monitoring probe because we can't specify the goals. I also can't see the work sample, can't produce a work sample. So you're going to want to make sure that your progress monitoring backs that up. In this case, when I pulled this up at this school, it matched. And in most cases, if the students really kind of try and they focus and they get out their paper and pencil and do what they're supposed to do, it matches. Now, if you feel like the student clicked happy clicker and went through and took it in 5 minutes, you, as the special education teacher, can administer that assessment anytime you want to. That means that you can sit down with that kid a couple of days later and say, hey, you know what? Look at this data. I need to know where to teach you. I need to know what you can and cannot do. I need to know what your strengths and weaknesses are so we can address those and encourage them to do a little bit better. Read aloud is enabled for everyone. So encourage them to use that. And paper and pencil is allowed. Manipulatives are not. And again, a calculator is not unless it gets to a calculator active portion, which would probably be much higher level math than when the student is working. So I would hone in on the adding and subtracting for an IEP goal. Hone in on that foundational calculation while you're still going to be teaching those place value skills and that number sense. So that was a lot in a few minutes. So what questions do you have about that? I'm going to dive a little bit more into this in just a minute.
One quick thing I want to remind the group is before you administer the assessment to the student, again, make sure you PDF the last one that was given, because STAR does not have a memory. And so we can go through back channels and get stuff, but there is no way for you to actually see the previous assessment scores so you can make that comparison. So you would just click, Joy's pointer is pointing to it, but you just click that PDF button and it will produce a PDF. And if you just save it to a file, that would be perfect. Then you can compare the two to see, what is really going on with the children and get more data.
Thanks, Tama. And we can go back and do that for you. But if you're sitting in an IEP meeting and you call us, we might not be in a place where we could pull up your past STAR reports, and it takes a little bit. So if you want to show that progress between reports, that's important. So you're going to want to save those if you administer it or before the next window. I would just say kind of make it a habit after it's administered in the classroom or by you that you save the report. Any other questions or anything anyone would like to share before I go back to the presentation? Okay, a specific goal. I'm going to talk about that, Stephen. So you led me right into what I'm talking about. Thank you. All right, so we know that we're going to hone in on that foundational calculation skill of addition and subtraction for this kid. Probably the same for Sally here too. Okay, so I'm going to show you a very valuable tool. I talked about what focus skills are, so I'm going to skip through this one. I'm going to show you a very valuable tool that you can use in your creating IEP goals. It is the Wake County Schools vertical alignment map, and it is linked in here. So we'll get to that in a moment. Okay, I'm also sharing it in the chat.
Before you do that, Could you please explain to them the guidance for math intervention? Because I think some may be confused as to why we're focusing on certain areas, and I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay, I also dropped vertical alignment in the chat. Yeah, I was going to get to that next, but it does make sense for me to do it first. Okay, so the guidance for math intervention are the big areas that Wake County Schools focuses on when we're addressing intervention skills with our kids. These were identified along with some research from NC State. So as a district, we're focusing on these big 6 areas. What do you not see there? And I dropped it in there too, I think. Word problems. Yes. No big, vague word problem goals. You know, we see goals sometimes that say stuff like, "It's just going to solve all the word problems with all 4 operations." Well, then you get the progress monitoring and you don't know what the kid's done, and measurement. Ah, thank you. Measurement is not there. Yes. These pretty much align with the focus skills that you see in STAR, right? You don't see shapes, identifying shapes, geometry, any of that stuff. This is the math it takes to do the math, right? Takes to apply the math, right? So that's what we want to focus on. Sometimes when you're in IEP meetings and parents go, why is he getting a 3rd grade goal when he's in 5th grade? Shouldn't he have a 5th grade goal of, word problems and solving all these things and the EOG's word problems? Well, yeah, it is. We're going to instruct on it. We'd be remiss if we don't. Some of you have attended our strategies, our structures of equality strategies, PLCs, and we've talked about how to teach word problems. That's a very important skill, but these are the things we're going to instruct on as special educators to close the gap. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand any questions about that? Before I go to vertical line.
The question might come up to you as to, well, why not word problems? Well, when you think about it, what does a child have to do in order to tackle a word problem? First thing they have to do is read. Okay, strike 1 for a lot of our babies. The second thing they have to do is comprehend. Strike 2, and we haven't even gotten to the math. So like she said, during SDI, you are going to address things in situational word problem form, story form, so that students have a context for the math. But we want to focus on the computational part. So that's the only part you're going to progress monitor is the computation. You still instruct it, you just progress monitor computation.
Okay, yes, Amy, I'll talk about that section really quickly. I just want to put a plug in. If you join our SES math page and look at the PLC schedule, there is one where I just put the last recording in YouTube, where we talk about how to teach word problems with structures of equality, created by Val Faulkner and Julie Russo, who's been a math consultant and coach in our district. So some of you might know her. If you'd like to take a look at that, there's a really fun tool that you can use with your kids. It's very effective. So talking about the 4th through 6th grade part, Amy, I'm sure your question is, when you get a kid that's getting an initial in 4th to 5th grade or a referral or in tier 3, they are probably getting instruction on multiplication and division. Am I right in that? That's what you want clarification on? Okay, so what I would do is, you want to, I would say, go back to that tier, whoever's providing the tier 3 instruction, your intervention teacher, and, ask for some data that kind of shows, align it with the STAR report, show them the STAR report. If the STAR report says they're struggling with addition and subtraction, then I would ask for some data that progress monitors that addition and subtraction skills of those students. Because, multiplication. Go ahead, Tama.
Oh, sorry. I just want to make sure everybody understands. So keep in mind that this document starts an intervention, and this document explains what intervention tackles based on, okay, so what they tackle is they tackle the most impactful skill.
Grade level skill, yeah.
The most impactful grade level skill. So for your 4th and 5th graders who are in tier 2 and tier 3 intervention, they are supposed to be tackling multiplication and division through the use of addressing the addition need through the use of repeated addition. Well, that doesn't work for all children to not have direct instruction on where they are on their most foundational level. So once they've gone through the tier process, if that does not work, then we are allowed to take them back to that foundation. So you may see some initials where the babies are working on multiplication and division. It's a hot mess. They did not do well. And you look at the STAR and they need addition and subtraction. Pull them back because that's what they need. Intervention based on this document has to do what they are told to do. But we are lucky enough as we can make the babies where they are. And so that's what we want to make sure. So when you get an initial and you see they've been working on multiplication, division, bless their hearts, and you see the STAR data and the classroom data, and it says addition and subtraction, do not hesitate to pull that goal back and go back to that foundational skill, even though they were working on something else in intervention.
And just because they're in this document, remember, is for Gen Ed, okay? So it's going to address the grade level that they're in. So if they're in 4th, 5th grade working on multiplication, an IEP goal addresses below grade level closing gaps. So do pull that IEP goal back. A student does not need we were told at one point, if you've been around a long time like me, write grade level goals and be ambitious. But we want to write goals that address the gap. Research shows that if we are addressing the gap, that we are doing a lot better job of moving kids along than if we just try to push them along to a grade level skill that's too big for them. So this is the MTSS flowcharts. There are lots of links and clickies in there, so you can go through and kind of look at how intervention flows for all grade levels there if you'd like. But basically, 3rd through 5th is administered STAR. They're identified as either supplemental or intensive. Most of our kids are likely intensive, or they wouldn't be with us. And then we want to kind of move on. That goes through the tier process from there. So if you'd like me for some clarification on that, or me to come out to your school and have some conversations with you or your staff, I'm happy to do that. So meet them where they are grade-wise. Yes, Stephen, that is a good way to put that. Yes, correct summation. If you look at what Stephen just dropped in the chat, excellent. Yeah, meet there where they're at development-wise. Good. I like that. I might use that next time. Okay, so I'm going to go into, and then again, this is just a big picture. You don't see word problems. You don't see memorize multiplication or those very vague things. So I'm going to show you vertical alignment map. Cool tool here that we have. I dropped it in the chat a little bit further back, but I can, let me do it again. Okay. So this is your vertical alignment for elementary math. Now I could probably spend the next 30 minutes of time we have talking about this. So if you want a little bit more in-depth explanation, I can help you with that, or there's also a good video tour. So what this does is maps out the entire curriculum for math, and it shows you where the students begin and where they go by the time they end elementary school. So up here at the top is a list of all of the standards. Now, if we go back to that fellow's standards, remember he had some 1st grade standards with adding within 100? So I'm going to go here to where he had those skills under numbers and operations in base 10. See if I still got the report pulled up. Yep. Right here, remember his skills were under numbers and operations in base 10, add within 100, and then there was one add within 20. So I'm going to go to, on the map, I'm going to go to, it's color coded at the bottom. So I looked that up and I see that color code is purple. So I'm going to click on the purple one, and it's going to take me to the progression of addition and subtraction. Okay. Now, when we assess our kids, what STAR does is STAR says, remember this little guy was ready for instruction and practice with addition within 100 right here in the map. Okay. It assumes that he can do all of these other things. Okay. It assumes that if he's ready for instruction and practice here, he can do this. So what's your present level? There you go. Of course, I'm going to progress monitor to make sure, but there's my present level. He can, do some of these. Maybe he has a little bit higher skills than that. He can add and subtract within 5. He understands, has some number sense and partners to 10. So you want to make sure that the students can have an understanding of the grade level before, and we're going to begin instruction here if STAR is accurate. Okay. What would be 1 year's worth of progress? What's typically 1 year's worth of progress? I know every kid is different, and we've had some conversations about, some may get to adding without regrouping, adding subtracting without regrouping. Some may be able to do both, but a year's worth of instruction is the next grade level. So the next grade level up is over here is adding and subtracting within 100 using some strategies. Do not put a strategy in your or put the word strategy in your IEP goal, or more likely don't put a specific strategy, because we don't want kids to use place value blocks forever, right? They might move beyond that, or they might go back and forth between using that and drawings and the standard algorithm. So if you feel this student is a little bit unique place to be with this kid because he's in 4th grade. If you feel like you can get him here to adding, subtracting within 1,000, great. If you feel like he's going to progress to only getting that fluency within addition and subtraction within 100, then great. So our IEP goal is going to be what we write for 1 year's worth of progress. So I know we don't have to write objectives anymore, but it is really good to sometimes break that skill down. Because what am I going to start with? Adding with no regrouping, subtracting with no regrouping, adding with regrouping, subtracting with regrouping. It's really good if you can break that down in the objectives so that when you produce that progress monitoring that's first without regrouping, when you produce that, somebody can't say, well, this goal is about addition and subtraction all the way to 100. Why am I only getting addition right now? Does that make sense? So I'm going to pause here because I know that was a lot again, and answer any questions that you have about vertical alignment. Keep the vertical alignment map handy. I'm going to give you a quiz and you're going to need it.
So I wanted to also point out that, remember, the vertical alignment map is the way the state has outlined the progression of the standards. And one of the things from the corrective action was that we were not aligning goals to the progression of the standards. So I highly encourage you. When I was in the classroom, I was not a genius. I did not have a lot of brain cells to burn. And so I used this tool because I wanted to make sure that I was staying in line with what was happening. My present levels, so this little baby is in the 1st grade. So that kindergarten band, those were my present levels because STAR tells me they need instruction here. So I used the band before, whichever it is, kindergarten, 2nd grade, whatever. Those were my present levels. I took out the strategies and just put what the child could do. Then I always jumped a year. Now for this baby, I honestly would suggest, being that they're in the 4th grade, I would work towards that addition and subtraction to 1,000. Now, in my goal, I would not necessarily write strategies, because if you notice the difference between 3rd grade and 4th grade is the word strategies. Basically, 4th grade does it with standard algorithm. I would try my best to push that baby as far to standard algorithm as I could. But if I just write it to 1,000, whether he does it with or without standard algorithm, goal can be met and we can move on to 100,000. So I just want you to keep those thoughts in mind, where the baby is. Like, this is a 4th grader, so he's older. He needs to be pushed harder. I would work with him moving. My goal would probably be adding and subtracting within 1,000. And I'll be honest with you, in order to keep everything kosher and everything agreed upon, I would do those benchmarks in between so the parent understands, hey, we're going from adding and subtracting with 100 all the way to 1,000. And I would have my benchmarks, and we have some examples if you would like to see, but I would have my adding and subtracting without regrouping to 100, adding and subtracting with regrouping to 100. And the reason I would include adding and subtracting together is that because they are inverse operations, they have to do with the relationship. So you want to teach the children in SDI about the relationships of quantities. And so it is better to teach that relationship when you're doing it with the inverse operation at the moment. 25 seagulls fly to the lighthouse. 15 more seagulls come to the lighthouse. How many seagulls do I have altogether? And then my next question would be, well, what happens if 10 fly away? And then we would do both operations fluidly so that the children understand how to manipulate the math and the relationships. So again, we have lots of some examples, especially for this one. I think Joy gets into it a little later, but I'll be honest with you, I cannot see how you could do it without benchmarks, because the length and breadth of the goal is so big. You want to be able to have goalposts as you're going to make sure the child is on track. And you don't want them to be willy-nilly and left up for interpretation by somebody else who gets the child behind you, or the child moves or something like that. So those are my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yeah. Please, I know we don't have to write objectives, but they really, for math, they really break things down. Jessica, the corrective action is in your niece's canvas. And if you want to stay on, I can show you where that is at the end. I wrote it down so I can show anybody, you or anybody else. I'm sure you're not the only one who has a question about that. Okay. So we're going to go back to a quick review, and then you're going to take a quiz. So I have an easy quiz for you today. Okay. So the STAR instructional planning report tells us where the student is ready for instruction and practice. Okay, gives us that grade level. So it gives us a starting point that we can take to that vertical alignment map, right? Okay. Anybody want to put in the chat what they recap the focus skills to be? Put it in your own words. What are the focus skills? The lightning bolts and star. I'm practicing my wait time. Okay, yeah, that one, those particular focus skills for that student we're adding and subtracting, they're the essential skills the student's ready to learn. And if they don't master those skills, then think of it as a web. You know, it goes out to like 4 or 5 different skills that students will struggle with if they don't master those skills. If you've taken 7 habits, they're the big rocks. Okay, we looked at the vertical alignment map, which shows us, yes, Jessica, foundational skills. We looked at vertical alignment. So when you're going to get some star data in a moment. When you get that star data, you're going to look at it and you're going to be able to see you'll be able to take it to the vertical alignment map and see the student should be able to do everything that comes in the grade level beforehand. And then what's a good instructional goal for 1 year of worth of instruction? Same thing. We look at the next grade level up for that. Okay. So I'm going to give you some time to let that soak in a little bit. I'm just going to show you a little bit more star data here. This is a grade level higher that we can take to vertical alignment. This is adding and subtracting within 1,000. And then we see down here some measurement and data. Where we want to focus? We want to focus right here. So likely for this student, this is where we're beginning instruction. If you notice the difference between 2nd and 3rd grade, as Tama pointed out, 2nd grade is using strategies. This is standard algorithm. If this little guy's in 4th grade, I might try to move him up a grade level to that 4th grade skill, because that's adding and subtracting is going to be very, very important when we get into that larger multiplication and higher level math as he approaches middle school. So I'm going to let you watch a quick video. This is from the DPI corrective action. It takes about 4 minutes. It's just basically about could a present level pass the stranger test? And as you watch, I want you to think about what a good present level will look like, because our quiz we're going to take is going to have some present levels in it for you. So I'll go ahead and start
Hello.
here.
Let's talk about PLAF writing common mistakes. The first common mistake is including too much information. PLAFs addressing academic skills contain statements like, "The student is very friendly with peers and helpful in class," or "We feel like the student has many friends," or "The student tries hard and has a supportive family." While some of these types of statements might be required if addressing functional skills like work habits or social skills, many times these extra statements are included when addressing academic levels. Additionally, information about reading and math levels generally do not need to be included in behavioral or social PLAFs. The problem with including too much information in a PLAF statement is that it interferes with the focus on the student's actual needs in the area identified. If you are including too much information, it becomes really difficult to identify the student's actual needs. What is it that the student can or cannot do? How does this compare to same-age peers without disabilities? How does this compare to the North Carolina standards? Why is this important? The PLAF section is the place to review the data from your assessments and to clearly explain the present level instead of including all information about the student. The second common mistake is using information that is too specific and often not understandable by all members of the IEP team. This happens often when there is an over-reliance on test scores from the evaluations that have been conducted. Everyone on the IEP team needs to clearly understand what the student can and cannot do, and how the data in the PLAF supports the statements made. This includes the general education teacher, the special education teacher, all the related service providers, the administrators, and most importantly, the parent. If the student leaves your LEA or your school, then the receiving school or LEA should be able to implement the IEP and provide specially designed instruction. Therefore, use clear, easily understood language with understandable data, painting a clear picture. Remember that it needs to pass the stranger test. Could someone else inherit this PLAF and know that student's strengths, needs, and the effects of the disability, and be able to implement the services with accurate progress monitoring? Another common mistake is describing the student's academic and functional performance in terms that are too general. This does not help focus on the student's actual needs and ensure that the IEP team can determine the areas requiring specially designed instruction, or SDI. When subjective statements such as, the student is struggling with their reading, or the student has inappropriate behavior, or the student has poor communication skills, are used without clear, objective data to support the statements, the facts become opinions, and it is unclear how to design measurable goals and where to begin, or to place the measuring tape to start measuring student progress. While all of those subjective statements may be true, without objective data, it is impossible to drill down and determine the appropriate level of special education services required to support the student's learning. Clear, concise, present levels of academic achievement and functional performance means I know where to start my instruction and I know where the student started. I can measure progress on the goals, and I can provide specially designed instruction to meet the student's needs.
Joy, you're muted.
Thanks. I didn't want to cough or sneeze during the video. So we're going to play a game where we look at some of these present levels. It's not hard, so don't overthink it. I just dropped in the chat. I don't want to hear you again, lady.
Writing common mistake.
Okay. I want to hear her again. All right. Okay. So you have 3 elementary reports I just dropped in the chat, and you're going to use your vertical alignment map. So make sure there's the 3 star reports that look like this. You're going to have Miriam. Okay. You're going to have Rowan, and you're going to have London. Now, I usually do this at schools in person, and I have these on cards. If I've been to your school, you've seen this before. So I got a little bit 21st century, and I put it in quizzes. So when you go into quizzes, you're going to see it on your screen, but I'm going to be moving you through it. So I'm going to tell you which one to look at, and then you're going to move through. You're going to see the present levels and goals that you can choose on your screen. Because it is 8:49, we're probably only going to get to 2 of these. It's not hard. I'm going to give you about 3 minutes per question, so it's all good. And don't overthink it, okay? So I'm going to start the quiz, and you are going to go to, it's going to go to joinmyquiz.com, and it's going to give you a code to enter. So have that document I just shared and your vertical alignment pulled up, and go to joinmyquiz.com and enter the game code there. And you're going to see the answers to the question and answer on your screen. Okay, so have that all good to go. Thank you again for all joining and playing along this morning. And just kind of like if you ever watched one of my favorite shows was Whose Line Is It? Whose Line Is It Anyway? There are no winners and the points don't count. So no stress. No points don't count. There are no winners. I think you're all winners for choosing to be here today. I wish I could send you all a prize. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started. So the first one you're going to look at, I know, love the music, right? First one you're looking at is Merriam, and you are choosing the best present level for Merriam. Don't overthink it. You have a few minutes to read them, but don't overthink it. A few more seconds if you want to answer. All right. Okay. Thank you all. Yes, I think most of you got it right. If you notice in some of these present levels, now you're choosing the best goal. I'll talk about present levels in the end. Go ahead and choose the best goal for Miriam. So it's considering what her present level said, which is the best goal for her. And don't overthink it. You are right if you chose the multiply and divide numbers up to 3 digits. If you notice in the last present level, there were some present levels that said things that came up in the video, like she's well behaved and she's a great math student. And, there's very vague things. We can say nice things, but somebody's going to say, prove it. If she's a good math student or she has these math skills, prove it. Show me the data. So pack that data in there. Please also do not copy and paste my present levels into somebody's IEP. Somebody can always pick apart a present level. IEPs are individualized and present levels should be individualized. And no present level is perfect. Mine also assumed that the progress monitoring matched and yours may not always do that. Michelle, for students who click through, I would encourage giving them the assessment again. Adult read aloud, I don't know that that's best because EOGs make them click on the thing to read it. So sitting with them and having them practice doing that and encouraging paper and pencil. There is not a paper and pencil star math. They don't share their things because of copyright. We're gonna look at one more. This one is London. So you are choosing the best present level for London, which I believe is on the 3rd page of your data that you got. Okay, for the sake of time, I'm going to move us on here. Didn't get a chance to answer. You're fine. Wherever you are is where you're supposed to be. Here's our leaderboard. Now you're going to choose the best goal for London. Last question of the day. Oh, you have more than 30 seconds. I'm going to cut that off. We have 3 minutes left there, so you're fine. Yes, we would want London to add and subtract problems with up to 3-digit numbers as we go through that. So I'm going to end that game now. And not sure how to do that, so I'm just going to click the X. Then I'm going to just go back really quickly to sharing the presentation, and then we'll wrap up. I will be on here for questions, as I'm sure some of the CTs will stick around as well. Or if you'd like to firm up a date for me to come to your school and visit you, talk more, I will. So thanks for playing along with that. I'm just going to recap really quickly. Remember, goals are just not a restatement of the general curriculum of what the student is expected to do in that grade level year. Okay, gen ed teachers are really good at telling us student strengths and weaknesses relative to what they're teaching. However, we're closing gaps. You want to think about what skills does a student require to master the content of the curriculum. Like Tama said, I'm going to backwards map that curriculum. Okay, use that vertical alignment. Yeah, we don't have those superpower memories, but we have that tool to use. And then we're going to write skills that address the most foundational need, that match the need in the present level. We're going to focus on those priority skills and that guidance for math intervention. And state how you're going to progress monitor. 4 out of 5. He's going to get 5 questions every week if I put 4 out of 5 in there. Easy for you. If you want some progress monitoring resources, I just go to like math aids, math drills, and print out worksheets. Boom, there you go. And remember, goals are attainable within 1 year. So data is what informs those IEP goals, and we pack that data into the present level. The IEP goals inform that specially designed instruction, and then the progress monitoring continually informs the student's progress toward the goal. So I'm going to stick around for questions, and here is our information. There is a link to our Canvas course in the slides, so be sure and join that. That's where we announce all of our PDs. Tama has also made a plug in the chat for our Rec and Rec training, which is our last one, where you get things to take home with you, Rec and Recs, and our Math for All, which is presented by Chris Kane from Mars Hill University. They're both on October 9th. If you send one person to the Rec and Rec training, they get 8 for your school. Come out to that if you
no
can.
one going, and I know it looks like we're full. I'm going to accept extra people because this is our last one. So right now we have 7 slots still. So if your school has not come to Rec and Rec training, come to Rec and Rec training, even if it's a wait list, and I will let you in. Okay?
Yeah, put your name on the wait list.
And
Thank you, Marsha.
Really
I'd like to
quickly,
plug that was a great training. When I went to the Rec and Rec training, I loved it. So definitely, if you can go, please do. It's great.
It's very exciting. One more thing I wanted to quickly do. I know we talked about goals, but we didn't show one. So I'm going, again, like Joy said, this is our work. This is a work. So I'm going to share a document that I use when I do cases. But goals, IEP goals are individualized, but I think it's always good to see an example, some examples of what a roadmap to achieving mastery would look like. Okay. So I'm sharing that with you in the chat. So feel free to take a peek. But it is not necessarily like the Bible, but it gives you that good roadmap.
And under the game slide link in the notes, there's a link to the goals that what you just saw in the quizzes, those goals too. So you can go back to those and refer. But yes, please do not go copying our goals all around.
Well, because they're individuals. Like
they're individuals, they're not individualized,
right?
right? Yeah.
You'll see on my sheet, my first kid, Logan, it's the same kid, but I wrote 2 different ways because I needed to go back and do a digging deeper assessment to see if he needed to go back and do adding to 10. So I wrote 1 goal adding to 10, 1 goal adding to 20 to see where he needed to be. So you can adjust it based on what the kid's data says, but this is just to show you what the roadmap could look like.
And some people have asked me, can I have these present levels? Just, I know you got them in the game, but just, make sure, remember yours are individualized and none are perfect, but you want that data rich and all that stuff there. So you are good to go if you don't have any questions. We have recorded
thank
this.
You so much, Joy.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, go ahead. Thank you for taking the time to be here, and thank you to everybody for having the opportunity to join us today.
Yes, this was recorded and it will be shared on our YouTube page. So you can, if you have connection issues, we are sharing that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sanford Creek and Nightdale. You guys are awesome.
Also for the AMC, the K2 teachers, Kim brought it to our attention that there are some K2 teachers. In the chat, I shared a video on how to administer the NKT in case you need it. We can give it at any time to any child. We give it K-12. Also, there is a video in the chat on how to administer the AMC and what the AMC is about and how to interpret those results. That's another topic we can come talk to you about, connecting the NKT, AMC, and DNC, if that is something you would like at your school.
I think some of you in here already have dates for that too for us. So also, we are doing this again on October 19th for track 4 only. So if you are someone who's tracked out today, thank you for being here, but you can tell your other staff to come October 19th. Is that right, Kim? Yep, I got it. I got it right here. October 19th
that's
from
right.
9 to 10:30. Kim has set that up for her track 4 only schools or traditional. So if you don't have any questions, you are good to go. Jessica.